Call to order the school committee meeting for January 28th, 2014. Would you please all rise for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all and welcome.
Good evening.
Dr. Rizzi.
We have a very exciting agenda tonight. And the first thing on the agenda is the awarding of the Certificate of Academic Excellence. And the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents gives me one of these, or sometimes two, to give out every year. And we try and do it a little bit early in the school year so that the student who receives the award can use it as part of their college applications, essentially brag a little bit about it, and sometimes it can help with that whole process. And so this year's award goes to a student who's with us this evening, Elizabeth Sloan. And I have, I'm going to read a letter that Ms. Meyer, her guidance counselor, wrote, her recommendation letter, because it's succinct and to the point, and I think it says some really nice things that I couldn't necessarily improve on. So what she wrote was, when I think of outstanding scholars I've known during my 22-year tenure as a guidance counselor, Elizabeth Sloan tops the list. Conscientious and thoughtful, she demonstrates great ambition without conceit. I've known Elizabeth since her freshman year and have always been impressed with her ability to commit wholeheartedly to multiple activities. A three-sport athlete, a scholar, a teammate, an engineer, Beth is the epitome of the well-rounded student. Each activity she pursues is her favorite at the moment that she's doing it, and she manages all of them while holding a part-time job. Beth's greatest strength is her leadership ability. Aided by fierce determination and endless vision, Beth is able to make plans, organize groups, and see her projects through to fruition. At senior parent night this fall, she addressed the parents of her classmates along with her peers, seemingly without any nerves or hesitation. She's an accomplished leader who has served her class treasurer for 3 years. So I'm going to come over and give you that award, and then some of the school committee members might have some questions for you. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations, Elizabeth. And to open it up to anybody Ms. Sauvanet.
I just want to say congratulations, and I'm just wondering what kind of plans you have for the future.
Well, if you're interested in what college...
You want to hold the mic so that the public can hear you? It's not for in here.
I do Nightline in the morning, so
Okay.
kind of used to this. Well, I applied to 5 colleges. I applied to Northeastern, Boston University, Temple University in Philadelphia, UMass Amherst, and New York University was my second favorite. So I'm hoping to either go to Temple or New York, and the major I'm most interested right now is neuroscience.
Very impressive. Good for you. Very impressive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Euro.
Congratulations. I have 2 kids, one 12 and one is 8, so I'll be calling your parents about their secret.
Dr. Brown.
First of all, congratulations. I like the way you said right now, because sometimes things do change, and it's okay if it changes.
Yeah, and that's what I've kind of learned over high school too. Like I learned that, it's okay to change your mind, and it's okay. And, I've had to balance a lot of things, as, the little paragraph said, and it's taught me a lot. And I'm trying to combine all those interests, and that's why I like neuroscience so far, because it seems to combine a lot of that. But I know that I might change, and actually one of the other fields that I'm interested in is teaching. So, that's always another option for me.
There you go.
So
I think you do well. I think
Yes.
you do well in educating from me being in the school system.
thank you.
And George.
Elizabeth, I think we all say and can agree that we're very proud of your accomplishments. According to the letter, you're a phenomenal person, and I think we all wish you the best in the future.
Thank you very much.
Indeed, thank you.
Okay, excellent. So If Leslie, you would let the three gentlemen have the table, and then we'll bring you back after they're done.
Yeah.
Okay? And Elizabeth, if you want to stay, stay, and if you want to go study, go study.
Yeah.
Should we move down?
No, we already did. They've got two, if they can.
Well, that's what they could have three, but
We want to,
yeah.
we're playing microphone. They want to know so they can each have one. Okay, well, they've decided to share. That's a very good example.
That's what we teach in school, that everybody should share. Yes.
Well, welcome, gentlemen. Thank you. Thank you for making us a priority over the State of the State address. You're honored.
We are competing Obama here.
And, well, and with the governor. At this point, really, I would like to turn this over to Ms. Sauvigny, who has really led the feasibility study, led the process to date, and talk about why you're here.
Well, I was wondering whether Senator Joyce wanted to first talk about what's happened and what's going to happen tomorrow.
Well, first of all, on behalf of Representative Galvin and Representative Kafka, I want to say thank you very much to Elizabeth Sloan for indicating she's going to go on to college rather than run against one of us. We were quite impressed with her, and you saw us there a little nervous as to when you asked what her future plans might be. So we have had the pleasure of working with Deborah, with Joyce, and with the superintendent, with all of you, and also with Selectman Recupero and others. We've heard loud and clear that the town, the taxpayers, the town meeting have been supportive of a new high school for the town of Stoughton. And we also, the three of us, had the pleasure of visiting recently at the South School, where the students from, I think it was kindergarten all the way through 5th grade, were just unbelievably charming and presented us each with handwritten letters from all of them, giving in their own words why they thought it was so important that they have world-class facilities here for not just Elizabeth, but for all the students in this and current and future generations. So we heard you loud and clear. The issue with respect to the school building authority on the state level, which at one point was the greatest future encumbrance of state tax dollars. It surpassed the Big Dig a number of years ago. So there's a lot of cities and towns competing for a finite amount of money. And the issue had to do with whether Stoughton would be prioritized among all of the other cities and towns fighting for those scarce dollars. So with the leadership of the school committee and superintendent, you invited the appropriate persons out there to meet with Lou and Bill and myself, but importantly with the town officials, to visit firsthand, to see the conditions here at Stoughton High School, to really get a local flavor of the level of support. And so we're happy to report that tomorrow, as a result of that really intensive collective lobbying by Representative Galvin, Representative Kafka, myself, and importantly with the local effort, that the school building authority is expected tomorrow morning to vote to really get Stoughton, as I could best explain it, to first base, to get you into this 270-day process where there's going to be a lot of work on your end, including appointing a school building committee, including a lot of important steps on the local end. But we have now gotten unofficial word that we expect it to be official tomorrow, that Stoughton indeed, if all things fall into place, will be looking at a first-class, world-class high school for one student in particular really just got my attention. I had a photograph with a little girl named Erin Fallon at the South School. And with these little, those big, beautiful eyes, she looked at me and said, well, I have a new high school. And Bill, Lou, and I all responded, because that was a lot of pressure. We said, we certainly will do all we can to make that happen, and we're happy to report that it does look like that's going to happen.
Great.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So Representative Kafka, Representative Galvin, did you want to say something? Thank you so much for being here.
Well, the senators pretty much told everybody what the process will begin to be after tomorrow. My message is for everyone to stay focused on what they have to do over the next 270 days so we can move forward in the process to realization of a brand new high school here in Stoughton. And whatever you do, please continue to keep us in the loop so that we know exactly what's going on from day to day, what you're doing, so we can communicate to the school building authority that things are going on as they should be.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
When we were talking earlier, Representative
Do you have a
Kaplan-
microphone?
Got one.
Thank you.
I got one. Can I hear me? I got it hidden. But he said, what the main thing we should do is we all have to focus. And I think he was right. We do have to focus. And the first thing we're going to do is tomorrow morning at this meeting, we will all be at the meeting to make sure that this process continues and that Stoughton is in that process. And I think it's been a great effort with the town and also with us. And it was a long process, and it was difficult, and it was like the whole community of Stoughton got behind this project.
Yeah.
It was the town meeting vote, it was bringing out the SBA out to the high school,
Yes.
giving them the tour, because, Stoughton, well, as you know, the high school isn't always the #1 choice as
Yeah.
to be the building that needed the most work in this town. And we had to prove that to the commission, and we did.
Great.
And you did. I mean, we all did. It was
Yes.
a joint effort, and if it wasn't a joint effort, it never would have happened.
Thank you.
So we just got to kind of continue to keep our eye on the ball and stay focused for these next 270 days and make sure this happens.
Thank
I'm
you.
confident it will.
Good.
So let me just go through a couple of things. First
Okay.
of all, in terms of the State of the State address, we did skip the governor's State of the State address.
To be with us.
And there's a lesson there, and it was taught to us by the late, great Tip O'Neill. All politics is local. So, although the governor does vote for me, by the way, he's my next-door neighbor, so I don't want to lose his vote. But this is important, and actually, this is a big deal. This is potentially tens and tens of millions of dollars to the town of Stoughton. I mean, this is a significant step. So just to give a little bit of the process, so the vote of the MSBA, the School Building Authority Board of Directors, to invite the district into the eligibility period was based on a review of the statement of interest and the due diligence in our collective involvement. It initiates a 270-day period for the district to complete certain preliminary requirements that include a certification of understanding of the grant program and the rules, etc. You have to form a school building committee and submit the membership to the MSBA for acceptance. And I know you have a lot of talent in this community and folks that want to give to help this project be a success. A summary of the district's existing maintenance programs, a certification of design enrollment, some other gobbledygook, but essentially there's 5 or 6, I guess 6 things that'll have to be done. I'm confident under the superintendent's direction it will be done, and this process will officially begin tomorrow.
Thank you so much. And I can't thank you all enough, because this is, as you pointed out, tens of millions of dollars of school building authority, state money and expertise that will be coming into our town that I absolutely believe will be a resurgence of our town and a resurgence of the downtown. And I'm not as good at speaking off the top of my head as you guys are, but I did want to say that the opportunity to build or rebuild a new high school is a once-in-a-generation opportunity. And this would never have happened without the help, advocacy, and attention of our elected representatives and state senator. Many schools and towns have great need. Only 5% or so are chosen by the school building authority to qualify for state funds and expertise. We are one of the school districts in need, and Stoughton High School is in dire need of replacement. We could not have risen to the top of the list without your help. Thank you on behalf of the school committee, administration, teachers, students, citizens, and town officials who all helped you help us. Thank you for coming to our town and our high school and bringing along the school building officials when you came. Thank you for continuous contact with us and the MSBA and meeting with us at the State House and for your advice. Thank you for helping Stoughton realize our belief that our children deserve a great education in a 21st century facility. And then I also want to thank the many students who wrote touching letters, signed a petition, gave speeches, gave out postcards, and sent emails asking for your help for their education. Many thanks to all the parents who sent in postcards, wrote emails, and made phone calls. And a request I have of all of you is that you all send a note of thanks to these gentlemen who advocated so fervently on our behalf. And I'd like to close with a sentence from the petition written and signed by the students at the O'Donnell Middle School. We believe that every student in Stoughton deserves to go to a world-class high school that meets their educational, health, and social needs. And amen to that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
George?
Dr. Earl.
I didn't write a speech, but I mean, this brings tears to my eyes. It's really a mark in the history of Stoughton, and we owe it to the whole community, school committee, the superintendent, and especially to you guys. I know how tough it must be to convince these guys at the MSBA, because the need is in every single community. And some communities may have greater that need than we do, but thanks to you, we got our thing in there, and we'll try to do the best we can to turn it into a golden opportunity.
Thank you.
And I have one more thing. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Zelinski. Yeah.
Go ahead, Deborah.
I just wanted, Senator Joyce, because I've heard you speak about this before, about what a new Milton High School did for the town of Milton.
Well, we all have experience with new schools in the towns you represent. Bill and I have worked together to obtain funding in Canton. Lou and I have worked together to obtain funding in Sharon. And in my own hometown of Milton, like what had happened here in Stoughton, there was a threat of loss of accreditation. Young families were making their purchasing decision on whether to invest in this community based on the schools. And we were at a crossroads, and we ended up, with the taxpayers' support, just as you have here in Stoughton, with all brand new school buildings, and it dramatically changed the face of that town forever. And we were ranked, I think, the #2 town in America in some national publication. Same thing happened in Sharon once they invested in their schools, and indeed in Easton, where we also saw a significant investment in the schools. And in fact, for the local taxpayers who are being asked to reach into their pocket to pay for the local component, what we've seen over and over and over again, that it's an investment that reaps ample dividends. A, their property values are increased. B, and this is something that's not often discussed, the maintenance costs of maintaining dilapidated structures is often as high when you take into account you wouldn't be getting the school building assistance from the state as the investment in brand new schools. And so we've seen in multiple communities, including each of our hometowns, how these new schools have dramatically changed the town. And not just for the students, but for all the taxpayers and as a communal gathering space. So it is indeed a very exciting prospect for the town. And I think that you're right in that this can serve as a catalyst to make Stoughton an even better place. And I don't want to discount the significance in a town that often has boards and commissions with very strong opinions, sometimes not always in perfect harmony, the strong support that this project got at the town meeting. I mean, this is something I think the whole town has rallied behind. And I think what you'll see is that the hard work really begins. Deborah, I was so impressed with you when, you know, your children won't benefit from this, but, you know, you're in Bill, Lou, and I are paid for our, you're not. So I was impressed with your efforts to push this forward. You're going to need a lot more of that from a lot of citizens. This school building committee is a very serious board, and you want some very serious people, because at the end of the day, you want to bring the project in on time and on budget, and collectively with a shared effort, I'm confident you'll be able to do that. But it will inescapably improve Stoughton for the better.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
I'd like to add, going along those same lines, you know, Stoughton's in the middle of a master planning process, and it has energized a lot of people in this town, and this is just one more component of that that will really help accomplish what that master plan is trying to do, which is improve the economic development situation in this town, and you spoke to that so well in terms of how it's impacted your towns. Likewise, would like to thank the parents, the residents, the children, everybody who participated, who wrote those letters, who gave me those cards so that I could visit your aides every week for about 8 weeks. I miss my meetings with them. I'm going to have to find more reasons to come in. They're a great bunch of people that work for you, and I'd like to thank them as well, because I know that they had to sort through and tabulate, and they were really the filter for the voices that were coming in and delivering that message to you. So please extend our thanks to them as well. And again, for all the work that you've done on our behalf. We really appreciate it. Likewise. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Dolinsky.
Gentlemen, I want to thank you personally. I don't have children that'll see this. My grandchildren may, and I'm very happy for that, but your work was greatly appreciated. And there's one thing you can all be assured of: you do have my vote the next time you run for election.
Thank you.
In fact, fundraiser at my house.
All right.
I'm going to ditto.
This is on a tape delay, please.
And Dr. Brown.
I'm going to ditto Georgia. You all do have my vote. It was a strong series of tasks we went through to get here. The children, parents, thanks so much. And whoever that little girl is, I have to go see who this child is with the big eyes to see this, because she injected the youth.
Erin Fallon was her name.
Amy
I
Fallon?
have the picture in my office.
Okay, I gotta go see her. I'm gonna take the time to come see Amy. But the thing about it is that it's an injection into the community of youth, not only with our students, with the new families who will now come here to benefit from this project. I want to thank all you all.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I just,
Joyce?
just one comment.
Of course. I'm sorry.
I know that you all are very busy, and there are lots of different kinds of pressure on your time. I have to say it's been absolutely a pleasure working with you, and you have this capacity, all three of you, to make us feel when you're here like there's nothing else that's more important than us. You really, really care. You are clearly three people who are doing what you're doing for all the right reasons, and it's been absolutely a pleasure to get to know you, and we'll probably do a lot more work on this project, but I don't feel that we could have better allies, partners, and supporters.
Thank you.
thank
Feelings
you.
mutual.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Pleasure.
Recess.
It shows you over the governor.
Thank you so much.
You've made a good decision.
Yes, I know. No, I think we're. This is our STA rep.
Actually,
I'm going to take just a couple-minute recess for the camera so that we can.
Thank you.
Thank you.
He's ready.
Okay, welcome back. Thank you for the brief recess. Leslie Camillo, our student representative, is here tonight alone. Thank you for taking this time out in the middle of midterms, when I know you'd rather be at home studying for what's tomorrow's test?
Chemistry and French.
Okay.
Wow.
Thank you for taking the
So you
time to
take
be
the
here.
chemistry test in French, or they are two different tests?
No, I'm taking both 2-hour tests.
Oh my God.
Welcome.
Yeah.
All right, so I just have a brief letter that I was asked to read by the student council president and vice president, and it's just supposed to voice the concerns of the student body, like going on in our school. So I'll start. To whom it may concern, we as the elected representatives of the student body at Stoughton High School would like to voice our opinions on the current situation regarding the renewal of the teacher contract. We are not here to take sides or point fingers. As a matter of fact, many of us do not know enough about the conflict to understand all the complications. School events, specifically student council-sponsored events, are not possible without the help of volunteering chaperones. Events have been increasingly difficult this year due to this reason. We work extremely hard each day to better the school environment and the community as a whole. We aim to lead by example and to spread enthusiasm and pride throughout our hallways. We understand that this situation all stems from the larger problem of an unresolved contract. Also, due to this conflict, many students are unable to participate in clubs and extracurricular activities. Many students feel like they are deprived of the same opportunities offered in past years, whether it be in a form of a club, a school event, a trip, or a scholarship. As young children, we learn to share, compromise, and to show our compassion for others. We are taught by this very school system to solve conflict through attentive listening to the needs of others and through mediation. Since elementary school, these strategies have been ingrained into our beings in order for us to learn not only academics but valuable life skills that will benefit us in the real world. Now we are surrounded each and every day by the unresolved conflict. By these same problem-solving skills and real-world strategies are neglected. There is tension in our walls, and we the students are innocent bystanders. Again, we are not accusing either party or trying to get involved in the details of the conflict. We are simply asking for the issues to be resolved as soon as possible. They have gone on too long and the students are the ones suffering. We ask that you employ proactive and efficient efforts to resolve these problems. We feel the needs and the best interests are being neglected in the midst of this debacle. As people who choose to devote their time and effort to education and empowerment of future generations, please consider the issues from the students' perspectives. Please take our opinions and our views on the situation into consideration and think about the example being set for us as you move forward to resolve these conflicts. Thank you for your time. Sincerely, the Stoughton Student Council.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Those are
Very
very,
nicely
very
written.
wise words.
Yeah.
And I'm
Very
sure
powerful.
that the state president and myself both heard you loud and clear. Thank you.
Would you give your letter to the
Yeah, we'd
secretary?
like a copy of it, right?
Yes.
But also, do you have the comments on goings-on while you have the mic and the floor for for what's happening in the schools?
We actually have this letter, and then we have signatures that we can send to you that we have with our advisor downstairs.
But Leslie did not actually bring a bullet point.
okay.
Oh, okay. All right.
The list.
Things to do with events and stuff.
Okay,
right.
Because as you had mentioned, there are lots of ways in which the student representatives could participate in the meeting.
Yeah.
And while we love that particular way of participating, and we hope to see more of that, there's also a palette of ways in which that they could participate. So that wasn't what you brought today.
Okay,
I just brought
great.
this letter from the student
Great.
council.
Great. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Okay. Next on the agenda is the public comment period. You
look
Thank
familiar.
you for being the messenger. May I?
Of course.
I'm sorry, I need to see who's speaking. Erdem.
This is Pat McNeil, I think.
I have Jennifer Grant first. I think you did. Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, just for future, for both of you, for future reference, under topic public comment, if you could put a little bit of what it is. Again, the reason for the topic is so that we know that you're not going to speak about students or again, something that can't be spoken about publicly
Privacy
for
issues.
privacy issues. So I trust.
Students on the agenda.
Okay.
Specifics.
Okay.
Just in general.
Thank you.
No problem. Hi. Good evening. Thanks for giving me time tonight.
Welcome.
My name is Jen Grant. I'm a resident of Stoughton. I live at 175 Stoughton Street. And I'm a parent of a child at the West Elementary School, and I also have a rising kindergartner next year. I also teach in a nearby district and have served on some negotiating teams in that town. I was surprised and disappointed, actually, that the school committee negotiation chair recently chose to use cable access TV to argue the positions of the school committee of the ongoing teacher contract negotiations here in Stoughton. It's regrettable that our school committee negotiation chair would choose to air her perspective publicly and then deny teachers the opportunity to respond publicly at this very meeting. The school committee negotiations chair's public comments contained 2 inaccuracies, too, that I feel that they require some public correction. First, you had inaccurately claimed that the Arlington teacher's contract contained 30 steps. So I've access to lots of contracts, as all of us do. It doesn't. It actually only contains 12 steps. So I have a copy of their contract, which provides all of those details, including some information from their last contract that you can use as a reference. And second, the school committee negotiation chair inaccurately claimed that most teacher contracts have between 3% between steps,
On average, 3%.
which is actually inaccurate too, because contracts vary between 3 and 10% step differential. So the current Stoughton teacher contract falls well within that norm. The chair's comments regrettably missed the mark. Our school needs stability right now. I think, as the students have said too, I think that I speak for all parents as well when I say that we drop our kids off at schools. We want stability. We want them to be in a happy and a harmonious environment, and clearly the students are feeling that, and as parents we're feeling that too. I hope that the school committee cares about the stability and functionality of the system as we do as parents. And I feel like it's time to stop the dysfunction. I spoke about this at the last school committee meeting too. I'm hoping that you can settle the teacher's contract in a fair and equitable way. Our kids deserve a really stable school district, and I feel like our future is so bright. And I really hope that this can be settled in a fair way very soon. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. And I do want to, for purpose of explanation, say that I was invited to go on the program with the president of the STA. As a matter of fact, it was delayed for a week because it was over the school vacation and they weren't sure that they could reach her. And until I walked in the door that day at the studio, I did not know that it would be only me on the program. In fact, Paul Schlickman, who's on the Arlington School Committee, is the person who gave us the new contract, which he said had 30 steps with 1% between steps at the MASC conference, which may, whether it's memorialized or not, no, and I have no reason to doubt you, except that he handed to both, and she's got a copy of it, to both of us at this conference as we were talking about settling contracts. So no means intended to put out anything that was erroneous or that wasn't supported. The reality is that the taxpayers of this town have a really difficult time with the concept of what is being presented. I did not go on to give my side of it until there was information put up at the STA that also was in fact erroneous by placing people on the wrong steps in a piece of literature that went out on December 2nd or December 12th, the night of the rally that was held here. And my purpose to speak to it is to clarify what our offer is. The reality is their side, or I should say their side, the union, is continuing to ask for 24% over 3 years. And I am not sure the taxpayers of this town understand that or truly can support it as taxpayers. So we are working together. As acrimonious as this sounds, we really are at the table talking, and we'll continue.
I understand.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
I know. I just like to keep the negotiations, private as they are. As much as I appreciate the public forum at this point, I really do believe that the negotiations should stay confidential.
No, there's no comment from the committee on this part.
Thank you so much. Nobody has to say anything else. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much.
And Ms. McNeil is next on the list.
I think I'm stuck.
Thanks. Yeah, I'll have to
Do you want
stay.
this
If you want to sit,
You're welcome to.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Public comment is going down the line, but as most of you know what my usual subject is about, is special education. And I continue to still be, and will continue to be, an advocate for the kids with special education in this town and other towns as well. I want to congratulate all of you who worked really hard for getting on the the list and being ready to, because I know that was a lot of work. And I hope that as you go forward, that you will include the Special Education Advisory Committee in the future, because it's very important that the kids be and the parents be represented and consulted as the state of Massachusetts had intended with the Special Education Advisory Committee. I just have a few points, and I know I don't have much time, so I'm going to go quickly through them. First of all our students deserve a world-class education, and that's all of them. We need to be doing more for our kids that are in special education. They have not been making AYP. They have not been getting the transition services they need. There's not the career and college readiness skills are not there. I don't know what programs they're being talked about. I mean, Ms. Miller last time at the high school wasn't real sure what was happening at the high school for some of the special education programs, and that really disturbed me. Our kids are part of each individual school. They're not just the special education, and I think we need to have more accountability within the schools, and we need to have a district improvement plan for our special education. We keep saying it over and over again, but we have all these SMART goals, we have all this data. And as everybody usually points out, is special education is one of the most expensive programs in the schools, but we don't have any knowledge of what's working, what's not working, or how to even measure it, or if we do, we're not seeing it. So it's very important that we get some of those goals, we get some things so we can plan, and we can know what programs are working and what isn't working. Right now, we really don't know. The other thing that's been a real problem is that the special education director is a principal. She has a huge, huge load. She cannot do both jobs. It's been recommended. It's something that I don't hear come up from this board, but it is something that really needs to be looked at. We have a lot of kids in special education, and then things are not getting done in a timely manner. And we also, I mean, we're a level 3 district. Our kids aren't making AYP. Let me see where I am here. We also need, tonight I know you're going to be introducing community relations specialists. And it's just, to me, it's another layer of bureaucracy that parents have to get through, that the information gets filtered through. We aren't getting enough transparency, and this isn't just another layer. The money that is being spent on this person, I mean, we need trained aides that are adequately compensated. That would make more difference in the lives of the students themselves and in their education. We need substitute teachers and specialists when kids are, we're taking aides out of some of the classrooms, that kids aren't getting their IEP services because of that. We need to be using the money in a different way so that our kids are getting the services that they're legally entitled to. And a transition specialist. College and career readiness. These kids can accomplish so much, and we're not doing enough to get them to do that. Their levels, I can't even start with that one. And I'm at the time. And then assistive technology specialist. We need to have both in the classroom and both for the kids to be able to go for higher education and to get their education, not even just to be able to utilize the computer. It's a really important thing. All right.
Thank you, Pat.
I went fast.
You did. Thank you, Pat. Okay. I will turn the agenda back over to you.
We do, in fact, have an introduction this evening. I would like to bring Jean Ostroff up to the table to meet you and the viewing audience as well. Jean is the newly hired community relations specialist who started on Wednesday in the midst of a blizzard, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Hopefully we won't have too many more days like that. So I wanted you to get a little bit of an opportunity to hear her and get a sense of the sorts of things that she'll be doing and the kinds of things that she's already started doing, and get just a bit of a sense of who she is. So maybe you'd like to start, just.
I'd like you to start, and then we'll probably, we have this kind of a spin-off in terms of the communications subcommittee, and I'm sure that they'll have, they'd like to add as well, so please go ahead and.
Do you want me to say what my experience is, or just what I'm doing, or?
Yes, give us a little sense of your background and and then what it is that you've started with.
I live in Natick, and I'm a web designer, I'm a visual artist, and I've written a couple how-to books, and I've worked for the Patch in the past. When my son was at Natick High School, back from 2000 to 2004, there was no website at that time. It was early on in the internet, and I actually did a volunteer parents website for the high school just to get information out with the support of the principal and the superintendent at the time. There wasn't as much info as your website has now, but given that it was all one parent running around and calling people and asking for information, I did work on that. So I have experience doing a high school website, and then also I do web design for people. I really do a lot of social media. I've already started a Facebook page for the schools. If you're on Facebook, you can go to, if you just type in Stoughton Public Schools, there's a page there. I think there are 4 likes so far, and hopefully that will grow to hundreds. I've already put some information on, including this evening about the high school and the MSBA. And I'm going to talk to Dr. Gray about Twitter and the website, and I help with the press release. So I'm just going to be getting information out to the public so everyone knows what's going on in the school system.
Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome. So I also want to thank you for jumping in right today and helping us with the press release that our legislators sent us. I know you only work part-time, and we really have about a full-time's worth of things to put on your plate, but I want to thank you. We had 3 really strong candidates with different skill sets, but Ms. Ostroff had the best set of skills for what the district needs to get out the word about our story. And I want to read a little bit from the this is called Telling Your Story, a Communications Guide for School Boards. And one of the things that it says, we live in a world in which facts often don't matter, suspicion is high, and the economy has undermined consumer and national confidence. Not surprising, the notion of doing the public's business for the public good feels as outdated as a 1950s sitcom. Yet that's precisely what school boards do. We need to take more pride in our accomplishments, more care in how we conduct the public's business, and we need to get the word out on what it is that we do. So that's really the purpose of this. The germ of it was in the Master Plan on Education Focus Group, in which Ms. Husseini and I participated. And what was crystal clear and really kind of shocking is that the suggestions that the people had in the focus group for the things that the school should do, the things that the school district should be doing, were actually things, almost all of them were things that we already were doing, and yet they had no idea. So, so we have a story to tell. We have talented students, talented teachers, and we want to get the word out on what's going on and what they're doing.
Sure. Welcome. And based on your criteria, I'm quite sure you'll be the spokesperson for the district, and we look forward to supporting you and giving you the information that you can portray to the public. I want to, again, thank you for arriving, and we look forward to work with you.
Thank you.
And Dr. Earl?
Good evening. Thank you for coming. So you see your role as one of your roles as taking care of the website for the district?
I don't know. We haven't gotten that far yet.
You didn't get your job description?
I do have a job description.
Doesn't say website?
Well, there's a lot of components to the website, and right now we have a content management system by which teachers and department heads take care of their own content. It is those other larger issue, district issue items that we don't have somebody that is responsible for that.
Well, Dr. Brown was saying as being our spokesperson.
She would be the spokesperson for the district in reference to be our PR person, yes.
How do you know that?
That's part of her job description.
Did you know that?
Yes, she does.
She looks...
The job the subcommittee, exactly, you're putting somebody on the spot.
Okay, I didn't mean to do that. Maybe I'll put the subcommittee on the... Okay, let me...
The more appropriate thing.
Let me ask some questions to the superintendent and to the subcommittee.
Sure.
Now, did the subcommittee meet?
Yes, we did.
When did you meet?
Deb and I had went to a meeting. Would we go out there?
Well, they went to a training
went to a
session.
training session.
It wasn't that they didn't meet, but they individually reviewed the resumes.
So did you meet to review the resumes?
We discussed the resumes.
Yeah.
When did you discuss the resumes?
I don't know, weeks ago, I think. Why?
Because that's the violation of the open meeting law.
Well, in fact, subcommittees, the reason that the committee has been working so hard on this process of setting up subcommittees, and the subcommittees have 2 members, so that in fact the subcommittee can meet and work without being in violation of the open meeting law with members of the staff. And that is how this subcommittee has been working. And we interviewed a number of candidates after we looked at quite a lot of resumes, and the committee members looked at the resumes and picked a number of people to interview.
I would like
So
to,
the subcommittee interviewed a number of candidates.
No, just the superintendent and
Exactly.
myself did.
And the research on the resumes was before we had formalized the subcommittees, but it was while the process was being formed and these 2 people had expressed the interest, the members had expressed the
I
interest.
think there has been open meeting law has been violated, but let's put that aside for now. So this was authorized as a part-time position, and did we hire as a part-time basis?
That's what she said.
Half-time?
Yes, this was a job that perhaps you will recall was in the budget last year, and
Yes.
it was discussed extensively, and the position which was budgeted for was the position for which we hired.
So it was 0.5. It's a part-time, and it's for 30,000
That is
for
correct.
half-time?
That's correct.
Okay. The next question is, this position is within the school committee budget. So how come the school committee did not see the resumes of the applicants and the resumes of Ms. Ostroff? And she's only being brought to the school committee as an introduction.
There actually were quite a number of positions that were voted at town meeting as part of the budget. And of course, the entire budget is the school committee's budget. That does not mean that the school committee then hires for each of those positions. And this is not a position for which the school committee directly hires. However, since there's an interest in the part of the school committee, and there has been a subcommittee set up specifically with the idea in mind that they would be working with this person when they did get hired, that is certainly what we anticipate going forward.
I think, I mean, this is a transparency issue, and it has been made an issue time after time, and I'm appalled that the superintendent keeps violating the trust of the school committee and hires a person for the school committee with the, for a school committee position, and fails to even provide the courtesy of providing the resume of the
Can I
applicant.
say that certainly we have a communications subcommittee that we all voted on, that we talked about publicly. Dr. Brown and I are members of the communications subcommittee, the way you and Ms. Husseini are members of the policy subcommittee. We certainly saw the resumes. We reviewed them, and then Dr. Rizian and I interviewed the 3 candidates. So it's not like you know
There's no transparency.
It's not like there's no transparency.
Just to respond to that, if you remember the document that we used to form the subcommittees, the subcommittee doesn't have the authority to make any decisions. The subcommittee is only...
hiring decision. This
Yeah.
No, we are talking about
We don't
subcommittees.
hire people.
We hire the people prescribed by
Subcommittee.
state
Wait a minute,
law.
let me finish my talk, then you can, I mean, I listened to Deborah when she was saying, the purpose of the subcommittee is to do the legwork, organize the things, and then bring it to the school committee to act on it. So what you are saying is superintendent has the authority. That's not true, because this is a position, if you look at your budget, this is a position within the school committee.
Can I just say one
doesn't
thing?
mean it's
I think
the school committee. Please do,
I
Mr.
think we're
Liskey.
somewhere off the track
Yeah.
here.
Yes.
Okay, we are a board of directors.
Exactly.
Okay, board of directors, like a corporation. we have a president of the company or superintendent. We have a subcommittee that made a recommendation or recommendations to review a number of resumes of people who applied for a position. They make a recommendation, not doing any hiring, but selected a number of candidates, and the superintendent, who is technically our employee or the president of the company, did the interview and made the hiring decision. I don't see where we're going, and we're going astray on this thing, and we're spending a lot of time on something I think is not necessary. I trust the superintendent's decision to make a good hire, okay, whether it be a teacher or a business manager or a publicist or a janitor, whatever. She's made the decision based on the information given to her and doing her due diligence. I think we're going far astray on this. I'd like to
let me answer what George has said. Yeah, very briefly. You said this subcommittee has reviewed and made recommendations. Where are the recommendations? Where are the material that has reviewed? Were we given the option of looking at what they have done? Were we informed what they have been doing? Because I have been looking at the meeting postings. There was no meeting of this subcommittee posted. And then all of a sudden, we get an introduction of a candidate without even the courtesy of a resume. I mean, this is the same thing over and over again.
I think, if please, this conversation, I think, is over here. We could go back to the introduction of Ms. Ostroff, who has quite a set of tasks ahead of her. I grew up in a school district that had a community relations person more years than I'd like to admit since I've left the district, and it really is an incredibly valuable position when you've got a message to deliver, and no time like the present when people get their news delivered to them in so many different ways. And we've seen the migration from the paper print newspaper to the electronic patch and to Facebook and to Twitter, yet there are still people who will tell you that they didn't hear what the message was, as was evident in our focus groups for the master plan. We are really looking forward to being able to put that message, which has been there the whole time, out to all of the parties in all of the methods that are available in a unified manner, from a unified voice. So, welcome.
Thank you very much. Welcome.
I'm glad to
Yeah,
be
we
here.
look forward to working with you.
Thank you. I'm looking forward
And
to it.
outside of all that, we truly welcome you here.
We're a spirited committee.
That's right. We all have their own opinion, so
Yeah.
don't mind us.
Okay, but thanks.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
No.
Okay. We'll move on to the district calendar, which is, yes.
It's already time to do the calendar for next school year, as is required by the contract with the Stoughton Teachers Association. The calendar was sent to the SDA for comment. So after they get to comment, you get to vote on it. There are several things we always have to look at. One is when school is going to end. We have to get the 180 days of instruction in, and when school is going to end if we have snow days. And things vary as far as when we can start the year. So there are 5 snow days built into this calendar. And the one change from what you've seen in previous years is there is only 1 day for Rosh Hashanah instead of 2. There's still a day for Rosh Hashanah. If Yom Kippur was on a weekday, it would be here, but it's not on a weekday this year. So we were looking at the differences that the different ways different districts decide to deal with this. 2 local districts have no Jewish holidays on the calendar. Some of them have 1, and 2 still have 2. So we designed this calendar to have 1 so that we'd have more flexibility around the potential for snow days. And it's certainly up to you if you want to put that other holiday in, or for that matter, take any of the others out. Because we have the tradition of what we do, and then we take all these things into consideration each time. So that's the calendar that you see before you has a proposed ending date of June 18th or June 25th if we were required to use all 5 snow days during next school year.
May I ask you at what point we have to have this calendar voted? on?
Well, do we need it tonight?
Okay.
It's just usual.
Okay.
This time frame of the
Okay, and what I wanted to do was to basically say that I realize you're opening up a discussion about, the one Jewish holiday, and that in fact we might be looking for input. That this is the point that I would invite that, because I will go to, before you start, I will go to a conversation and a phone call that I got a couple years ago, actually maybe the last time I was chair, 2 years ago, and it was from a Jewish parent who was asking why we celebrated all of the Jewish holidays when some towns around us didn't. And it was somebody who was basically advocating for those being school days as opposed, because they can only speak from their family experience, and I appreciate that, but I think what it is starting a conversation, because we do see a lot of things happening. We also see an incredibly diverse community that is growing from all sorts of religious practices whose holidays aren't observed. And at some point, every school is facing this. And my intention was to put this out on the school committee listserv, and got busy, and it didn't happen since the superintendent and I had this conversation just on Monday, yesterday. But I would like to start the conversation, and I'd like everybody to kind of weigh in and see what the feeling of the committee is, and maybe if we'd like to solicit public input on that. So, Dr. Earle.
I'm not Jewish, but I appreciate the value of celebrating other. Even for non-Jewish kids, it's really important to celebrate the Hanukkah and the Jewish holidays, as well as Christian and Muslim holidays. But I don't really have a strong opinion for one way or another on the Jewish holiday issue, so I'll go with whatever the superintendent wants to recommend. But if I remember correctly, in previous years we were having only one day for Rosh Hashanah, and last year it was always 2 days.
It's always 2 unless one of the days falls on the weekend, which is.
And then I had asked. I thought George had told me that. Maybe somebody else. Maybe I asked Rabbi. How come some people celebrate Rosh Hashanah one day, or some do 2 days? And then I was told the more serious Jewish people do 2 days, and others do 1 day. But so that's my input. But
I will say that it is the practice of the school system for anyone who wants to celebrate a religious holiday that is not in the calendar, that to take an absence for a religious reason is an excused absence. So in a situation, if you decide you want to go with 1 day, and there are people who would like to keep their kids out of school to celebrate the second day, it is an excused absence, and there is no penalty for choosing that. And there are holidays which, as you mentioned, are not honored with days off in our calendar, and people get excused absences for those. And some districts look at it as a matter of it should be all or nothing, and so there are none. So this is something of a compromise between those things, and it's really entirely up to you.
I wasn't finished. So the other comment I had was, I think it's also maybe even more important for parents like me, is this calendar doesn't have the early dismissals. Is it because we didn't get the input from the teachers, or
the early release days have not been decided yet.
They're not all scheduled yet.
So we will have those done before
Before you vote on the calendar.
Okay.
No, that is not part of this school calendar. They'll be done at another date, because the calendar for the professional development is done at a later time.
And this is more so that we can establish a start date and an ending date for the school year.
And the formal vacations. All of the early release days are in fact school days, so they don't count in terms of the 180.
I thought we had it in previous years when we voted. The early dismissals were marked.
Well, I think what we'll have is the number of early release days.
Eventually, the early release days are contractual, and there's 8 of them. Isn't that right? I'm pretty sure there are 8.
We'll look it up.
They are not part of this calendar. They never have been. And if you go back over a few years, the calendar has this same look to it, and the days that are marked are the days that are full days off.
Okay, George.
A couple of questions. I personally like the 2 days off for the Jewish holidays. Secondly, I don't know what the impact would be on a student going to school, or an impact to the teacher having to teach a subject on a day that the Jewish population is not in their class, then having to repeat the same stuff, and that I think impacts the entire class. Okay, but I'm not in the classroom. Andrea can better attest to that. That's the first comment. So I'm in favor of the 2 days for the holidays. Secondly, I just question, and this is going back, and this is tradition, not the song, but tradition. There's a February school vacation right after a vacation after 4 weeks prior to that.
Right, good
okay?
point, George.
What is the February vacation period? And I know I'm going to get killed for this one. Why is it there?
Well, the reason for most of them, it has to do with it started during the oil crisis of the 1970s, when school districts and colleges were looking for ways to have schools closed over as much of a period of time during the peak heating season as possible. So February vacation got put in everyone's schedule essentially to save money. And that as well has become a tradition. So we look at what other districts do, what the history in Stoughton is. Technically, that was the reason for it, and now it just has become a custom.
And and I will add, it's unfortunately a custom around which a lot of people not only have their vacation plans and other plans, but around which certain camps and programs schedule their time. And I, again, grew up in a place where there was a March vacation instead of a February and an April. I know that Southeast Regional went to that recently, as they did when they were going through their construction, and I don't think they went back to the February, April. But it is difficult when you're competing with, like I said, other interests and other programs that are run during these vacation weeks. So.
I'm just saying, it's just, to me, and I know what the February vacation is. We used to run basketball tournaments during February vacation. It all works out, and there's a lot of things out there for the kids. But it just seems kind of strange that 6 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever, coming back from 7 or 8 or 9 days off, coming back and taking another 5 days off, and then going through
6 weeks later, there's one in April.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, you can correct me on the numbers, but at the same point,
George,
Dr. Brown.
I'm sorry, it's also a time that teachers need to kind of melt down to come back up and finish the rest of the year. It is well needed, trust me. If you've been an educator, you kind of feel when it's time to take a break. Just from being an educator in this.
Educator's point of view.
Educator's
no,
perspective.
I respect that. I mean, that's fine.
Yeah.
The other thing I just wanted to point out also, and I like the idea of building in and knowing when the school days are, the snow days are, and hopefully we don't have them.
You want to know a year in advance?
No, I'm just saying, it's just that we've built it in with enough forethought. I mean, it's that we have a little leeway, because if you have June 25th, you still have around 4 days after that. We can go to 9 if we have some time.
If we had to go to 9.
We had the blizzard of the
God
century.
forbid.
So we've had a couple of days this year already, so.
Yeah, never mind.
Yeah, we won't go into that. I have nothing else at this point.
Any other comments? I'd just like to add to the one question you asked up front about the impact on the classroom, and not that I'm a teacher in the classroom, but I think the only benefit of the Jewish holidays being so early in the year is that there's probably less disruption on the classroom in terms of like, I'm thinking of my high school child in terms of having the midterms and the tests that you've really gotten into the content, But like I said, I think I would personally like to hear, and I certainly will put it on the MASC listserv to hear from other schools as to what they do and how they've approached that. But I would certainly welcome emails from parents as well, because I think that is something that we need to hear what the community has to say when it comes to the religious holidays.
It may also be a good idea to reach out to the rabbis.
Absolutely, absolutely. Joe's done that.
Okay.
and you, I won't say with the blessing, but.
Well, having had a very long discussion with one of the rabbis of whom I am extremely fond, we have put forward this calendar. So, there you go.
Okay. Oh, well, that's interesting. Okay.
But there is another rabbi I know would be more Shiloh House, yeah. It would be.
Ms. O'Venay.
So I think that this is fine. I would just like to know that you've heard from some Jewish parents as well as Jewish staff, and You know, did you get input from Jewish parents or Jewish staff as to whether this was okay?
I went straight to the clergy.
Okay, all right, okay.
And there will be a difference of opinion on this. Some people will want to continue with the 2 days. Other folks, actually, there are many more Jewish holidays in the calendar.
Right.
Yeah.
And very observant people would want to take those off as well, and probably do.
Okay.
There certainly is a body of opinion that feels that the separation of church and state is such that people want to take their religious holidays, that's their business, and the calendar does not need to honor them. And even quite religious people that I've spoken to have said that. So there's a wide range of opinion, absolutely. And for us, it's a matter of making sure that we don't, at the end of the year, have to do something like have school on a Saturday, because we have to, by law, be done by the end of June. We can't go into July. So then the question comes, do we take a day of April vacation? Do we have a Saturday? Because that issue may have to be addressed, and this just gives us, from the planning standpoint, a little more leeway. But that may not be the most important value in this decision. And once you know all the facts and what the potential issues are, we'll work with whatever you decide.
Dr. Brown?
I'm going to go along with the rabbi.
Well, like I said, we're not voting on this at this meeting. We'll put it back on the agenda
Yeah, I'm gonna leave
and
that
wait
alone.
for some responses. And again, I think it's really important to remind the parents that any religious holiday, they have the right to keep their child as an excused absence to celebrate or to observe their holidays. So,
And Ms. Husseini, will you be putting it out on the listserv?
I will try to remember to get it on the listserv in my kind of hectic day tomorrow. But
Thank you.
Yes, note to myself. Next, we have the superintendent's goals on our agenda. You are going to be given a piece of paper that was not in the packet because Dr. Rizzi and I did not have the opportunity. I didn't have the opportunity to meet with her until yesterday. Oh, did we put it in the packet? Oh, you emailed them.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, she emailed them. I have mine.
Excuse me?
I didn't think that you had yours.
I found it on the computer.
So it is that time of year again, and unfortunately, I would have liked to have done these sooner, but that we're all learning the new evaluation process together. So this year, the superintendent's evaluation, we had voted last year that we do the superintendent's evaluation slightly off of what is normal, in that we would do it at the have it completed by the election.
And in fact, that is normal in a lot of districts, as Ms. Sovini and I learned when we went to every evaluation workshop there was at the MASC conference 2 years ago. That a lot of people are doing that, and we've run into the issue that others have, and the reason for it is it gives the board who has actually worked with the superintendent over a full year an opportunity to weigh in, and it also means that somebody who's only been on the board for 6 or 8 weeks doesn't get to comment on a whole year of work that they didn't get to observe. So it is, it's a practice that is certainly becoming much more common.
It is common. Where it doesn't align well is that it doesn't show the completion of the year and the body of the work that necessarily, that has a logical completion date of the end of the school year.
I think, and the new evaluation system is still rolling out, and different districts are in different phases of it. We're in our second year. Our first year was only a half year. So there are only a few districts that have been through a full 2-year cycle, and maybe none that have been through a full 2-year cycle with every single one of the educators in the district. Maybe there is, but there probably aren't. If there are, there are not too many. So what we will be able to do in the future is, if we have a goal setting right at the end of the school year, so June, and then we will evaluate a year's work from June through to April, then I think that actually does make sense as a calendar. So what we're essentially doing is a half year, but as someone who has been evaluated at least 3 times in the last 18 months, I think that a kind of reduced process over a shorter period of time to establish the new system will be a way for us all to experiment with it. And then we'll have a template for going onward as we continue with this process until the state gives us something else.
Do you need a paper copy?
Yeah, do you have one? Do you have a paper copy down there?
I have mine.
No, I can look on with
Pass it
her.
on top.
Okay, understand that today we are presenting the goals. This isn't the evaluation.
Right.
In fact, this isn't even the template for the evaluation.
Right.
This is a means to get these goals out to you and then to explain what the process will be. You will, on March 11th, or whatever our first meeting in March is, receive the template by which the evaluation will happen. That template, and I'm holding up my thing, everybody has access to, and if you don't, I will email you a copy. It's a document called Evaluating the Superintendent of the New Massachusetts Educator Evaluation System. It contains the rubrics, it contains the template that we will be using to plug this into. Does everybody have a copy, or do you need a copy
have to go
email?
look at it.
Oh, did it change from last year?
They did not change from
Have to
last
look
year.
for it.
I just want to email it to everybody.
Okay. It is the one that was done in September of 2012.
What I was going to recommend, Joyce, is this is this came to us yesterday. I didn't have a
Because
chance
that's
to,
when my meeting was. Yes, I'm
I
sorry.
didn't have, we didn't
Got it
have,
today.
No, and that's what I
have
was saying.
chance to. So why
This is
don't
going
we?
on the agenda again.
Some of these are.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
let's talk about the goals before March 11th. Like next meeting, let's talk about the goals
Absolutely.
themselves and how we are going to evaluate them.
Absolutely.
Is that your intention?
That is my
Okay.
intention. And thank you for getting it to the short explanation of my long ramble. In fact, that is just what I'm doing, is handing these out for you. Like I said, it was our
Let's
meeting.
start for us to thinking.
Exactly. Ms. Sauvanet.
So the only recommendation that I would have is that I would like to know how some of these goals will be measured. So that's the one addition. You know, how do we measure whether you've whether the goals have been achieved and whether they have been successfully achieved. So, for instance, like the student learning goal, which is to implement extended day programs to address remediation needs and enrichment goals. Is there a way that we can measure the success of those programs, or just the implementation?
In this case, it's the fact that they would happen.
The implementation.
The programs, in fact,
That the programs will be implemented.
Data tracked until next year.
That's the evaluation of the program, not the evaluation of whether or not the goal has been achieved. So it's part of our 3-year plan to establish those programs, and my responsibility to establish them. And actually, I have an update on them a little later.
Okay.
So what impact they might potentially have on achievement, the teachers will have some information certainly on that, and we'll have some opportunity later in the year to look at it and talk about it. We have in the budget proposal for this coming year to even expand those into next year. So my goal is to see that the programs that were budgeted for, planned for a year ago, 2 years ago, that were supposed to be implemented in this budget cycle this school year, that in fact happens.
So I would still ask, when these come back to us, that you mention how they would be measured, you know, or what part of them, because that is a piece of the new evaluation system, that the goals be measurable in smart goals. So if you could just think about that and sort of add that into this, that would be great. And then I had another question that was pretty much kind of unrelated, but it's really just a simple question. That is, with regard to professional development, you went to the mediation conference, and at some point I'd love to get a report about what you learned and what the
Mrs. Shea has the materials.
Okay.
And so they come at one of them came in a book, with one of the little plastic comb binders on the back.
Okay.
So she's taken the book apart to copy it for all of you.
Okay.
And we will get it on an agenda when it fits in. The last few weeks, since I came back in early December, we have not really had time to devote some time to that. But you'll get a synopsis, and we'll have a conversation about those things.
We'll
do a presentation at the meeting.
Perfect. Okay.
So there's quite a lot of material.
Okay.
And we decided that it wasn't going to be her priority this week or so to do that.
No, we have a pretty busy week.
Or even since, we've been through the budget process and these other things that we've been doing.
Yeah, okay.
But when there seems to be an appropriate place to fit it in the agenda in the near future,
Okay.
I'll do a presentation on that
Great, thank
material,
you.
which is really, really interesting.
Thank you, yes.
Joyce?
Dr. Earl.
Well, I got one more. I mean, as I said, I haven't really looked at those, but it seems like some of these are retroactive goals, like develop a budget proposal that clearly outlines, unless, but
They're goals for this year upon which we can evaluate her
I
for
don't
this
know
year.
how kosher it would be. I mean, that's something for us to discuss at the next meeting, because I mean, a person could look at what she has done and say, well, these were my goals and this is what I have done. So I mean, I don't have opinion one way or another how it should be, but it will be good to discuss.
And likewise, there's the ability to remove things. I mean, we are guided to provide 4 goals essentially, and you've provided 6.
Right.
So if we find that there is in fact something that is redundant or could be combined or it could be worded differently, that is a conversation that I will then go back and have the superintendent. But like I said, this was our discussion yesterday. This was a chance to get it on the table and to talk about the process. The actual evaluations, like I said, will be handed out on the 11th and expected to be back by the 25th so they can be tabulated and presented at the April meeting, which we need to probably talk about moving the date for under other matters if it coincides with the election date. But I didn't even have a chance to verify the election date. So moving on to, if we're done with that, we'll move on to the next.
When is the election day?
Second week in April,
Is it
isn't
April
it? Second,
Eighth.
yeah, like I said, the 8th.
Confirmed, okay. Which is a scheduled school committee meeting night, and we don't traditionally meet on election night, so we will talk.
Actually, the second time I got elected, a school committee met the day after the election.
Yeah.
And then I couldn't come
Couldn't
because
do
I
48
wasn't.
hours, yeah.
We had to wait for 48 hours.
Yep. But we will take that up at some point. School curriculum update. And as I know, Mr. Ford.
We have a school curriculum update. We actually have 2. You can keep this, Carol.
Okay, great, thank you.
So, Mr. Ford isn't able to be here tonight, so I'm going to just give a brief curriculum update for him, and this is related to the previous conversation. So, it is in our 3-year plan and has been now, so this is the first year, but we've been in the planning stages for a while, to add an extended part of the school day for students who need remediation on the one hand, and who have also for opportunities for advanced students enrichment.
Good.
So we have both of those things on the docket and the drawing board, and we have begun the remediation piece. So it was necessary for us to get some data on students, and we get a lot quicker feedback now on what students need help and what areas they need help. So I'll just give you an example. All 5 of the elementary schools have programs running. And some of them have, they're the same, but they look a little different. Some of them have them before school, some of them have them after school, some have choices of before and after school. So I'll give you the example of what is happening at the Dawes School, because that's a good example of what basically all the schools are doing.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
The data you got for these things, you're putting together extended day program for remediation and for the kids who advance. You're doing extracurricular activities. Where did the data come from, Dr.
Well,
Busy?
so in order to invite, so the teachers needed data to decide what students to invite to the remediation programs. So they're using a combination of data. MCAS scores can be a piece of that, but we don't have scores yet for this year because they're in the spring. But we have last year's scores. We also use the Ames web system for doing a quicker evaluation, that you get a faster feedback, and that helps you determine students' growth. Then there are also teacher design tests, so they can use the materials that come in the ELA program that they're using in the
Performance
classroom.
assessments there.
Also the math program, and teachers can use old MCAS questions if they would like to use them to get a sense of where the students are. So based on all of those different tools that are available. They can identify which students might be behind in certain skill areas or need extra work in certain areas.
Okay, thank you.
So now at the Daw School, they are running several different sections, grades 2 through 5, and students are being enrolled by grade. So for instance, grade 2 is Tuesday and Thursday mornings from 7:25 to 8:25, and that is going to be a set of 14 sessions, so that's 7 weeks, twice a week, and students are invited to either be in the ELA class or the math class. And then third grade is running Tuesday and Thursday mornings, 7:25 to 8:25, but also there's another option of Tuesday or Thursday afternoons, 2:45 to 3:45. Now, to give you an idea, so one of the things to me is whether these programs are working is, are children participating in them? A, are they running? B, are they well designed? C, is the information that we have on the students being used to address the skills that we want to address, and our students attending? So in the second grade class of the DAW, for instance, there were 8 slots available. 12 students were invited, anticipating that some would not come, and 8 of them have accepted, so that class is full. In the third grade class, there's 1 slot empty. In the fourth grade class, there are 6 slots empty. In the fifth grade class, 2 slots empty. So we are looking at what it is that we can do to break down any barriers to participation for children who are invited. That's one of the reasons that we have the late buses in the budget proposal for next year. So the principals will be gathering information as to if parents decline the invitation to participate, is it because the transportation is an issue, or is it because they're not familiar? Or, so we'll be looking at that. But that's a pretty good rate of acceptance.
Yeah.
But there are still some spaces open that they could have some other kids. So at the beginning, the teachers assess the students using all those various tools and others, and then they design the program around the skill deficits that those assessments have demonstrated. So what we'll see is after those interventions, will those kids be having less trouble and be more caught up with their classmates? So schools are different sizes. So we have, so the DAW is over 400 students. That gave you a little bit of sense of the size of their program. Some of the other schools are smaller. We did not limit their budget based on the size of the school, so that we didn't have to say to the South, for instance, that just because you're a smaller school, you couldn't run as big a program. So some of them, so there are options in the morning, options in the afternoon, and there are right now in the core subjects. So the next phase is to get the enrichment programs underway, and the science ones will be up and running shortly, and then there's an ELA module in the works.
Great. Excellent.
So time-wise, it might be difficult for children to do both.
Right.
And with what was budgeted for this year, there will be some limits into how many we can offer. It seems that we'll serve as many students as can be, and then in next year's budget, there's enough money to actually double the size of the programs if it turns out that that they work the way we anticipate. And we have found that in most cases, students who have struggles benefit from more time with skilled teachers on the material that they don't understand. And this is going to provide that very opportunity.
Mr. Dolinsky.
Right now, the figures that you gave us as to the placements were strictly on the Daw School.
Yes.
And we haven't done anything in the other schools yet? Or
I just wasn't going to bore you with the number of
No, I'm
children
just
in
curious
the
as to-
school, but I have information from all of the principals. So, for instance, the Hanson School, smaller school, they've set up sessions for grades 2 through 5. They've invited 6 for each module for a total of 18 students for each grade. And so they're running on a little different calendar. Those are 15 hours as opposed to 14 hours. But they're also doing the same thing. They're doing Tuesday and Thursday mornings. And then they also have an option, because they're using some college students, to actually do a session during school hours for certain students who have.
What was the acceptance rate at that school? You said there were 6 openings per session? Was it a full?
The list they gave me, they appear to be full. So with 6 a session, with 6 students a group, they appear to be full for all the grade levels.
Right, now, and
For right
the,
now, and then the spring session is anticipated. They haven't filled that yet.
okay, going back to the Doll School, I'm sorry. Of the, there was one session that you said there were 12 kids and 8 were accepted, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Correct.
And then there was another session that I think,
What the way it worked was, in order to get 8, they had to invite 12. So there were
Right.
8 kids invited. 4 would have said no. They would have invited another 4. So they had to invite a
Okay.
total of 12 to fill the class of 8.
now, there are still openings though at the Doll School, right?
The 4th grade, I think.
Yes.
In the 4th grade?
Yes?
Okay, so we're in the process now, or they're in the process now of re-inviting additional kids.
Yes, unless they have, and
Unless
if they
there's
don't
nobody
really
else that
feel
needs
that
it.
they can, that they have kids who need it, or that they've asked everyone and have everybody that they would have invited has, for whatever reason, declined.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other- Dr. Earl?
This is very, very interesting. Did you have a handout that we could take home and
I do
study
not.
more? Would you give us
With an
a
update.
written or draft description of what you said? I know even Mary,
yeah.
that would be helpful. The other question, based on the earlier comment, what are we doing for the special education students?
Well, there is no reason why a special education student couldn't be in any of these sessions, and I will go back to something I've said a number of times in special education. We have many, many things going on for special education students. All of our special education students are well served, and the programs that they need are designed through the team process. And so whatever interventions are in their IEPs, those students get delivered on an individual basis or, when it's appropriate, in groups. So they have a special set of services designed for them through the team process. So when one talks about special education generically, that conversation breaks down fairly quickly because every student's plan is individualized. For students that this program would be appropriate, they would be put in a session the same as any other student.
Well, if I may respond, we can't talk about it generically and we can't talk about it specifically, but we have to address the issue of the special education. My question still remains, what are we doing to address the needs of the special education students, since they would probably need more remedial issues? The second point, you said they all have IEPs. I disagree. Some of them, we say they are not qualified to have IEPs, so we serve them on other plans. So the question still remains, what are we doing to serve the needs of the special education students?
Legally speaking, special education is defined by a student on an IEP. So that's the term that is meant by special education. So children who are on other plans or who need remediation for that are not on IEPs are not, strictly speaking, special education students.
Okay, let me rephrase it then. What are we doing for students with disabilities? So we call them not special education, but students with disabilities.
If a student has a diagnosed disability, then they will be on an IEP and they will be a special education student.
I beg to differ. There are students that are on 504 plans based on their disabilities. The question is, what are we doing with for these students?
I'm just looking for a clarification. If the question is, what is this program doing for these students, or is this a separate question?
Remedial,
Okay,
remedial
because
things.
what I heard is that any child who qualified based on the test process would be invited into this if it fit into the parent's schedule.
This would not be a substitute for a student's special education services if they qualify for an IEP and therefore are a special education student.
But for those children who fell outside of that framework of IEPs, they certainly would be, if they qualified based on the test scores, part of this process.
Correct.
Is what I heard.
So I'll look forward to reading your notes.
Well, there are no notes. This is an update from Mr. Ford, so there are no notes yet created on.
Yeah, I will ask Mr. Ford to create notes.
Dr. Brown.
Okay. I guess what she's saying, Dr. Earl, they are already being serviced under 504 with an IEP.
But all the students are being served. I mean, we are creating special programs to address.
I knew it's 27 years. I'm trying to make you understand.
We're talking about the topic that's on the table now, which is the update on the curriculum, not the
Exactly.
general.
Right.
So that's
Which is, and the remediation program was designed for all students who needed remediation in these areas. Students who qualify for special education because of a disability each have an IEP, which is also addressing their disability, which means that they are not excluded from nor particularly put into this program, which is new and is in addition to anything that a student might get on their IEP.
It's a double dose.
No, actually, it's not. What she said is not right. Not all the students who have disability is not on IEP. I mean, I'm surprised you say that, which is not true in Stoughton schools. Period.
again,
Maybe you want to talk to the special education administrator. She'll explain you that.
we're talking about this, and we're going down a totally different topic and a
Okay.
definition. But
Let's
thank
move
you.
on.
Let's move on. Thank you. Is there a second curriculum update that you mentioned?
Well, there is, because something new has come to my attention, and it's related to the issue we talked about earlier of perhaps moving into the MSBA program tomorrow. Because we got an update from NEASC on our reports to them. So you remember we had the NEASC process 2 years ago, and then we are required, and Ms. Miller is the person who actually writes the reports, the high school principal is always that person, to report on the recommendations that NEASC made. And you might remember when we had that process and we got a list of things that they asked us to address, what we said at the time was, we can address, have addressed, and or we're in the process of addressing everything that they mentioned. The only thing we couldn't do ourselves with our own teachers, our own administrators, and our own processes was to address the deficits of the building. For that, we needed the help. And we are now, it looks like, going to get that help. This letter that we just got from the NEASC Commission commends us on addressing every single other issue that was brought up in the NEASC report. So all of the issues that have been addressed, they mention in one section, and they're, I'll just give you a few highlights. And then they mentioned the three that we did not address. One was they wanted a report on the status of the MSBA funding, which they'll now get, and then to address the issues of the ADA, which a new building will address, and then to develop a plan to solve a water leak problem in a building, and the building will address those things. Right, so those were the only things left outstanding. Amongst the things that they mentioned that we did address, and some of them you addressed through budget, work done by the Core Values, Beliefs, and 21st Century Learning Expectations Committee. That was not a budget issue. Training teachers in data analysis and effective use of data teams. Mr. Galligan and Ms. Sullivan have come and talked about that. Provision of common planning time. Initiation of an advisory program, which finally got off the ground. The hiring of the parent engagement team, they cited that as a complement. The implementation of the core curriculum, and we've talked about that a number of times at this meeting.
Yeah.
The hiring of a full-time librarian, which was something that you did address as a budget issue, and that was very substantial. The addition of materials for the library, which you also addressed through this year's budget, and the addition of technology in the library. So all of those things were budget issues, and they have been addressed, and they are complimenting us on those things. Long-term curriculum development, and a number of other things. I could read the whole list, but with the exception of the things related to the facility, we have addressed all of the concerns of the NEASC Visiting Committee of 3 years ago.
Mr. Dillon.
Can we get a copy of that letter, please?
Yes.
I agree. I was going to ask for the same. Can I have a digital copy, if that's okay?
Mary will just put it into a fax machine. I mean, the copy machine will send you an email. She probably has our email addresses on the speed dial on the copy machine, right? Just as a general comment, it would be really helpful to have these things in the packet so the school committee can discuss intelligently. I mean, I appreciate that you're giving us the information.
This letter came today.
Okay,
and
maybe you can
those-
put it on the agenda, but I'm talking about general. The school committee packet essentially had only the minutes. I mean, I would like a little more beef so I could read, do my homework, think about it before I come to the meeting.
Sometimes we have 80-page packets, and today we have 16.
I have sent
understand.
emails to Dr. Rizzi about skimpy school committee. I feel like I'm not doing my job, just here listening what she says, and just it'll be helpful to provide some backup information. Thank you.
Point taken. Next, is there anything else under curriculum?
No.
Okay. We are going to move on to old business.
Why would you want to do that?
Actually, I've got nothing under facilities update, and I'll jump down to my other one, which is wellness update again, which I have nothing on.
Can we just go to feasibility?
So would you like to talk about feasibility, Ms. Silvernail?
Well, we certainly got thrilling news today. Something that we've all worked at for 3 years. Of course, the next sort of really important bit of business is to form a school building committee. The roles of which are really pretty proscribed and have to be approved by the MSBA, but I can hardly wait to go to the meeting tomorrow and hear them actually vote and approve, even though, as you heard from our legislators,
Looks good.
It's done.
Yeah.
So
your process next will be.
Well, the next thing I want to do is meet with the feasibility study committee that we haven't met for quite some time after our initial flurry of activity. So we'll probably meet one more time. I'll kind of update them, and then we will dissolve ourselves.
Excellent. Mr. Zielinski.
Question on the building committee, is it, and I don't recall offhand, there are specific requirements for the membership, so therefore you need, let's say, like an architect or a oil heating person or whatever the case be. I don't know what you want to call it.
Christmas 4 letters in their last name. And
right. But that is all
it's
prescribed.
very prescribed process, and there's a lot that has to happen while she's looking for that.
Yeah.
On both the town, this is a collaborative effort. This is not just a school committee, this is a town and school committee thing. And so we have a lot to hear from the MSBA, who will be assigning the proper people to work with us to help shepherd us through this process. But she's looking it up, and yes, it's a very, very specific.
Yeah. So for instance, let me just. I just about have it here, but for instance, the town manager is to be a part of it. The superintendent of schools, the principal.
At least one school committee member.
At least one school committee member, the chair of the school committee, and then they're looking for people that have
expertise, right?
Expertise in building backgrounds. Yeah. Oh, so here it is. We need a member who is MCPPO certified. That's the purchasing agent. The town manager, superintendent of schools, local official responsible for building maintenance, so that would be Joel, the school principal, a member knowledgeable in educational mission and function of facility, that could be a teacher, local budget. Yeah.
Could be a principal also.
The principal's on here separately, members of the community with architecture, engineering, or construction experience. So, and then after we come up with our list, then we send it to them, and they have to approve it.
Do they do background? Well, I would presume they do background checks and everything else.
Yeah.
Do the people that have to be on this committee have to submit resumes, or?
We will find that out as we go along. But
just curious.
They're very, very thorough, and sort of based on what we've had to provide them up until this point. There's been a lot of detail, and it's been a very thorough process.
It's helpful that they've been through it so many times.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's just and they've written every single step of the process, so it's a kind of just it's very, very clear. Each stage is broken down, and they've got a lot of experience with it.
Nice guidance over there, since they've been through for 3 different times in 3 different towns.
Yeah.
Very well, thank you. Also under old business, I have reports from standing subcommittees or updates. I know that I have asked committees to meet, and actually I believe the only committee that's formally met is the policy subcommittee.
Actually, finance subcommittee tried really hard to meet in December, but we weren't able to.
We're a little bit behind.
Well, and this is a reminder for those who haven't, and
Right.
from the policy side, and one of the part of the charge was that I had put together a draft charge, if you will, for each committee scope as to what the committees were to do, and I would like that to be on the agendas for each of those committees to further define that and bring it back to us to vote, because the policy subcommittee did meet last week. We did so at the request of Mr. Ford, who had a list of policies that the state had for attention. So we kind of took things out of order as opposed to going through the policy book. We're going to be revisiting that next week, I believe the 18th he gave us a date. I don't know if you've responded. But we're meeting again to do that and to look at our scope and to bring those back. So for those committees that haven't had that opportunity yet to set that meeting, please do.
Well, we found out that the, what was the committee? They already met, so.
Well, they reviewed resumes. There was
That will
not
be
yet.
subject to future discussion.
We met on a work, yeah.
Oh, you said you
in a
met,
workshop.
it's on record.
We
Okay.
went to a workshop.
And so please, budget, publicity,
We'll get to it.
policy, and I can't even remember what the other one was.
Finance, did you say
I said budget.
finance? Yeah.
Again, I'm fading. So yes, policies met, and we will continue to meet, and we'll have some policies actually at the first probably meeting in March for approval that have come out of that. Correspondence.
None, Madam Chairman.
Anything from the school's district side? Very well. On to the acceptance of minutes for the regular meeting of November 26th.
I didn't make any notes on here, so I would make a motion that we accept the minutes as printed.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Is that unanimous?
Yes,
Okay,
yes, I'm
thank you.
sorry. Forgive me.
Page back. Right. Other matters. I have one other matter that I'd like to bring up before we get too far. I had asked Mr. Anzavino, which is, I apologize for looking at my phone, but I asked Mr. Anzavino to text me because the selectmen were meeting tonight in an executive session. But before he did so, he had put out a request for dates from us for a meeting to interview the Southeast Regional School Committee applicants. And the dates, he polled his members and told them the dates that we were available, and we have agreed that the meeting will be on February 12th. February 12th, 7 o'clock. That meeting will start out, well, it'll be at 7 o'clock. It'll be for the purposes of Dr. Rizzi and myself being able to present a first introduction to them, to the selectmen, of our budget process, not of our budget per se, but they were interested in the process and our thought process behind it.
Science fair.
Yeah. And the interview of the Southeast Regional School Committee applicants. He also lists that there's an executive session that was requested by Jamie Kelly. I do not know if that executive session includes us. I will confirm that for you, or it'll be confirmed when the agenda comes out. But because
So
we
that
all
will start at 7?
it started at 7, because we all agreed on that date. They have chosen that, and he has added to the end of his text, congratulations on the MSBA eligibility process. So.
Aw.
Where is this meeting
Oh,
going
that's
to be held?
sweet.
You know, he does not say, and I'm going to say it'll be held at Town Hall, unless. Geez.
They like to
like
meet
that
in a
better.
hotel with sandwiches served.
Yeah, I always think
No,
that
this will
was
be at
good.
Town Hall.
Okay.
Other matters.
I don't believe I have any
I
others.
had one, I believe the superintendent got the revenue sheet. I would request that she share that with everybody.
We have a new revenue sheet.
I don't think I do.
January
Numbers came out.
16th.
January 16th.
If you think that there's a revenue sheet available, then please ask the people at Town Hall. I'll be happy to have it too.
Well, I mean, that's your job to get the revenue sheet so that we deliver the best educational results with the money we have. And it's the job of all the school committee members.
I understand that. This sounds like something that the Budget and Finance, I should say Finance Subcommittee, probably
Ought to
should
be
be looking
getting,
at. So let's make that
I
part
think
of the charge.
everybody should look at it.
The last time we discussed the revenue sheet, the only revenue sheet that was available was last year's. And that's been available to everyone for months and months and months. And
Right.
I don't, as far as I know, have anything new yet to work with.
So we had, on December 10th, you said you received a revenue sheet and you and Mrs. Hortaridas were looking at it.
No.
And then
it
I
was
asked on
last
December
year.
17th.
It was last year. She said it was last
Wait,
year.
listen, but let me finish, because I listened to whatever you are saying, so you should have the courtesy to listen to whatever I'm
Go on.
saying. So on December 10th, school committee meeting, the superintendent said she received a revenue sheet, and then they are looking at it, and then they'll distribute it to the committee. On December 17th, I asked, we didn't get the revenue sheets. She said, we are still looking at it. If you don't believe me, listen to the tape. And then our last meeting, she said, well, that was the old one. They realized after looking at it, it was the old one. Now we got, I heard there was another one sent to her on January 16th. So that's why I think we have we have a barrier of disseminating information. I think this is a really crucial piece of information that should be disseminated to the committee in a timely fashion. That's the point
And
I'm making.
Point taken, but again, one of the reasons we formed the subcommittees so that these conversations could happen and that you as committee members could come back to us and say, I mean, this is all very much he said, she said, and quite honestly,
I mean, he said, she said is on the tape. And I mean, you don't want people walking into Bill Rowe's office and demanding revenue sheets. I mean, he sends it to the superintendent, and it's our expectation that we get copies of these important pieces of documentation.
And we've gone down this path again.
So I just wanted to make sure that everyone saw the article that was included in our packet. I don't know who included it, but I had been fascinated by that article. It's about the public school advantage and why public schools outperform private schools. So I had privately found that article in the Globe and had been reading it, and also a really in-depth review of the book. And it's just a really fascinating story. With a lot of data, particularly coming out of Stanford. And I wouldn't mind passing on the review of the book that I found, because it has a number of interesting links that would be good to look up. But it really puts to lie the idea that public schools are failing and that private schools are better, because when you look at the data, all things being equal, that's not true, and it's just a fascinating article. So I just bring that up so that to make sure that everyone takes the time to read it. That's it. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any other matters? Hearing none. We have an executive session tonight. First, we have financial warrants that will be circulated in the school committee room. The executive session for tonight is the acceptance of minutes for the executive session of November 26, 2013, collective bargaining strategy for Unit A, and a grievance update. I am going to pull up my document, which I did not have open to refer to as to the reason for going into executive session. Takes me a second. I need to clean up my documents. The open meeting law references that this is reason number 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigation position of the public body. Going to take a roll call vote. There are no votes that are going to be taken tonight in executive session, so we will be adjourning from executive session. Roll call vote, Dr. Brown. Ms. Sauvanet.
Yes.
Mr. Dolinsky.
Yes.
Dr. Earl.
Yes.
And myself, yes. Meeting adjourned.